Understanding both the power of compound interest and the difficulty of getting it, that's the heart and soul of understanding a lot of things. The first rule of compounding is simple: never interrupt it unnecessarily. When I was young and saved $10, I knew I was really saving $100 or even 1,000 because of future growth. It just took a little wait. Great investing requires a lot of delayed gratification. Most people just can't stand to wait. If you didn't get the deferred gratification gene, you've got to work very hard to overcome that. But here's the truth: it's the waiting that helps you as an investor. Patience isn't just a virtue in investing, it's the entire game.
In 2013, two coworkers were earning the exact same salary. Lisa saved $500 a month into index funds. Maggie said, "Life is short. Why suffer? I'll enjoy my money now." Both believed they were right. Fast forward 10 years later, Lisa owns investments worth more than she ever imagined, and Maggie is still living paycheck to paycheck. This story isn't about judging. It's about how tiny habits create massive wealth or massive regret. Two identical salaries, two opposite choices, one unbelievable outcome. In 2013, two coworkers were earning the exact same salary. Lisa saved $500 a month into index funds. Maggie said, "Life is short. Why suffer? I will enjoy my money now." Both believed they were right. Fast forward 10 years later, Lisa owns investments worth more than she ever imagined, and Maggie is still living paycheck to paycheck. This story is not about judging. It is about how tiny habits create massive wealth or massive regret. Welcome to Harper Mumbling. Our story begins in January 2013 at a mid-sized marketing firm where two women, Lisa and Maggie, both aged 28, worked in adjacent cubicles. They had started at the company within weeks of each other 2 years earlier. Both earned $52,000 annually and had become close friends. They ate lunch together daily, commuted together occasionally, and knew intimate details about each other's lives. From the outside, their circumstances appeared virtually identical. But beneath the surface, they held fundamentally different beliefs about money that would create wildly divergent outcomes over the next decade. Lisa had grown up in a household where her parents lived modestly despite earning decent incomes. She watched them save consistently, invest regularly, and retire comfortably at 62 with enough assets to travel and enjoy their later years without financial stress. This imprinted on her a belief that present sacrifice creates future freedom. When she received her monthly paycheck, her first action was always to pay herself first by transferring money to savings and investments before spending anything on lifestyle. Maggie had a different upbringing. Her parents worked hard but never seemed to get ahead. They saved occasionally, but something always came up that required spending those savings. They talked about retirement but never had a concrete plan. What Maggie learned from watching them was that life is unpredictable. Tomorrow is not guaranteed, and you might as well enjoy today because the future may never come as you planned it. She genuinely believed that experiences and enjoyment in the present were more valuable than abstract financial security in a distant future. Neither woman was wrong in some absolute moral sense. They simply had different values and priorities. But what neither of them fully understood in 2013 was how profoundly their different approaches would compound over time and how the gap between their outcomes would widen not linearly but exponentially with each passing year. In January 2013, Lisa made a decision that would define the next decade of her life. She calculated that after taxes, rent, utilities, groceries, insurance, and essential expenses, she had approximately $1,200 per month in discretionary income. She decided to commit $500 of those dollars to investing, specifically into a simple portfolio of low-cost index funds tracking the total U.S. stock market. She set up an automatic transfer so the money would leave her checking account on the 3rd of every month immediately after her paycheck arrived and purchased shares without requiring any conscious decision or effort from her. This automation was crucial. It removed her ability to rationalize skipping a month or reducing the amount when something tempting appeared. The system operated independently of her emotions, her social pressure, her momentary desires. $500 disappeared every month into investments, and she structured her entire lifestyle around the remaining $700 of discretionary income. She could not spend what was already gone. Maggie took the opposite approach, though she did not think of it as an approach. She simply spent whatever was left after essentials. Some months she saved a bit if nothing interesting was happening. Most months she spent everything. Her discretionary spending included frequent dinners at nice restaurants, regular shopping for clothes and accessories, concert tickets, weekend trips, beauty treatments, the latest phone upgrades, subscription services, and countless small purchases that felt insignificant individually but added up to consuming her entire discretionary income month after month. Maggie was not irresponsible. She paid her bills on time, maintained good credit, and lived within her means. She just chose to define within her means as spending everything she earned rather than spending less than she earned. She genuinely did not see the point of depriving herself today for some vague benefit decades in the future. She was happy, enjoying life, creating memories with friends, and felt her approach was more psychologically healthy than Lisa's apparent self-denial. The two friends never argued about their different philosophies. They occasionally teased each other gently. Maggie would joke that Lisa was turning into an old lady at 28. Lisa would joke that Maggie should probably check her retirement account balance sometime, but the teasing was affectionate, not judgmental. They respected each other's choices and assumed both paths were equally valid, just different. The first 3 years showed almost no visible difference in their lives. Lisa invested $500 per month every month, totaling $18,000 in contributions by the end of 2015. With modest market returns averaging around 7% during this period, her investment account had grown to approximately $22,000. She had earned $4,000 in returns, which felt nice but not life-changing. Maggie spent her discretionary income on experiences and lifestyle upgrades. She had wonderful memories from this period: a trip to Europe with friends, regular brunches at trendy restaurants, a wardrobe she loved, concert experiences she still talked about. When she calculated the happiness these experiences had provided, she felt completely validated in her choices. Meanwhile, Lisa's $22,000 sat in an account she rarely looked at, generating no experiences, no memories, no tangible joy. This is the period where most people abandon the saving and investing approach. The sacrifices are immediate and concrete. The benefits are distant and abstract. Lisa said no to numerous social events because she did not want to spend money. She wore clothes longer than fashion dictated. She took modest vacations or none at all. She felt the social cost of being the friend who always declined invitations due to budget constraints. Friends stopped inviting her to certain events, assuming she would say no anyway. But Lisa had something Maggie did not have: a clear mental image of her future self. She had done the compound interest calculations. She knew that her $22,000 was not the end point, but the foundation. She understood that investment returns compound not on your contributions, but on your total balance, which meant every dollar she invested early would have maximum time to grow. The sacrifices hurt, but the vision sustained her. Maggie had no such vision. She lived entirely in the present, which brought her genuine happiness during this period. She did not feel she was making a mistake. She felt she was living the life Lisa was too afraid to live. By the beginning of 2016, something interesting started happening in Lisa's investment account. She had been investing for 3 years and her balance had reached $22,000. In year 4, she contributed another $6,000, but her account balance grew by $12,000. For the first time, the market returns on her existing balance exceeded her annual contributions. This was the beginning of the compound effect becoming visible. The mathematical reality was beginning to shift. In early years, Lisa's wealth accumulation came almost entirely from her contributions. The $500 per month was the dominant factor, but as her balance grew, the returns on that balance started to matter more and more. A 7% return on $20,000 is $1,400. A 7% return on $50,000 is $3,500. Same percentage, vastly different dollar amounts. By the end of 2018, after 6 years of consistent investing, Lisa's account had reached approximately $54,000. She had contributed $36,000 total, and investment returns had added another $18,000. She had turned $36,000 of contributions into $54,000 of assets, a 50% gain. The compound effect was accelerating. Maggie's situation had not changed. She was still earning about the same salary, still spending everything she earned, still living paycheck to paycheck, but comfortably. She had 6 years of memories and experiences, but her net worth remained essentially zero. If she had tallied everything she spent over 6 years of discretionary income, it would have totaled approximately $43,000, similar to what Lisa had invested, but it had left no residual value. The experiences were wonderful, but consumption, unlike investment, leaves nothing behind. The friendship between Lisa and Maggie remained strong during this period, but subtle tensions were emerging. When they discussed future plans, Lisa talked about financial independence and early retirement possibilities. Maggie talked about hoping for promotions and salary increases. Lisa's security came from assets accumulating. Maggie's security came from expecting her income to continue. Neither recognized yet how fragile one approach was compared to the other. Then 2020 arrived with COVID-19 and everything changed. The marketing firm where both women worked was devastated by the economic shutdown. In April 2020, the company laid off 40% of its staff, including Maggie. Lisa survived the cuts, but with a salary reduction. Both women faced the most significant financial crisis of their lives, and their different approaches to money determined how they experienced this crisis. Maggie's experience was terrifying. She had no emergency fund beyond maybe $2,000. She had been living paycheck to paycheck by choice, not necessity, but the result was the same as someone living paycheck to paycheck because they had no choice. When the paycheck stopped, panic set in immediately. She filed for unemployment, which helped, but it did not cover her full expenses. She had to borrow money from family. She accumulated credit card debt for the first time in her life. The stress was overwhelming and constant. The psychological impact went beyond just money. Maggie had believed her approach to spending everything was fine because she could always earn more money. She had treated her salary as a guarantee, a permanent feature of her life. The layoff shattered that assumption. She realized with painful clarity that income is not guaranteed, that jobs disappear, that the future she thought would take care of itself could actually become a crisis if you had not prepared for it. Lisa's experience during the same period was completely different. Yes, her salary was reduced by 15%, which was stressful. And yes, the stock market crashed in March 2020, temporarily wiping out 2 years of gains from her portfolio. But she never felt panic. Her emergency fund, which she had built separately from her investment account, covered 6 months of expenses. Her reduced salary still covered her essential needs. And most importantly, she knew from studying market history that crashes are temporary and recoveries are inevitable. Something remarkable happened during the pandemic that widened the gap even further. In March 2020, when the market crashed and everyone was panicking, Lisa's automatic $500 monthly investment kept executing. She bought shares at prices 30% below where they had been weeks earlier. She did not try to time the market or wait for the bottom. She just kept buying because that is what her system did. When the market recovered with shocking speed by the end of 2020, those shares purchased during the crash appreciated dramatically. By December 2020, Lisa's investment account had reached $88,000 despite the market chaos and her own salary reduction. 7 years of consistent investing had created a portfolio that provided psychological security during a crisis that devastated people who had no such cushion. Maggie found new employment by late 2020, but the experience had fundamentally changed her perspective on money. She had learned the hard way that consumption provides zero protection during crises. The final 2 years of the decade demonstrated the full power of compound growth that most people never experience because they never stick with investing long enough to reach this phase. Lisa's portfolio had reached a size where the annual returns started to dwarf her contributions. In 2021 and 2022, even though she continued contributing only $6,000 per year, her account balance grew by significantly more than that due to returns on her accumulated balance. By the end of 2022, her account had reached $112,000 despite a challenging market year. By the end of 2023, as markets recovered and reached new highs, her balance crossed $137,000. And now in early 2025, after 10 full years of investing $500 per month, her account stands at $156,000. She contributed $60,000 total over 10 years, and investment returns added $96,000. Her money earned more than she contributed. The psychological transformation was even more significant than the financial one. Lisa no longer felt like she was sacrificing. The compound growth had reached a point where she could actually see meaningful monthly increases in her balance from returns alone. The delayed gratification was no longer delayed. She was experiencing the gratification right now in the present from decisions she had made years ago. Her past self had given her current self an incredible gift. Maggie's experience over the same 2 years was recovery, but not growth. She found a new job paying slightly less than her previous role. The pandemic had taught her the importance of saving, and she started putting money into a savings account, usually $100 to $200 per month when possible. But she was starting from zero at age 38, a decade behind where she could have been. Her net worth in 2025 is approximately $8,000, money she has saved over the past 4 years since the pandemic wake-up call. The gap between Lisa and Maggie after 10 years is $148,000. Same starting salary, same starting age, same opportunities. The only difference was Lisa committed to investing $500 per month and Maggie committed to spending everything she earned. That single difference, repeated 120 times over 10 years, created a wealth gap larger than most people's annual salary. In January 2025, exactly 10 years after Lisa started her investment journey, the two friends met for coffee to catch up. The conversation turned to money, as it often did now that they were approaching 40 and thinking about the future more seriously. Lisa asked Maggie if she regretted her spending choices over the past decade. Maggie's answer was complicated and honest. She said she did not regret the experiences, the trips, the concerts, the meals with friends. Those memories were real and valuable, but she deeply regretted not finding a balance. She wished she had saved even $250 per month while still enjoying some lifestyle spending. She wished someone had explained compound interest to her in a way that felt real rather than abstract. She wished she had understood that you do not have to choose between enjoying today and securing tomorrow. You just have to do both in moderation. Lisa admitted her own regrets from the opposite perspective. She said she probably sacrificed too much, especially in the early years. She could have invested $400 per month instead of $500 and used that extra $100 to say yes to a few more social events and experiences. The isolation she felt during years 2 and 3, when friends stopped inviting her places, had been genuinely painful. She wished she had found a better balance between building wealth and maintaining relationships. But both women agreed on one thing. The person who wins is not the one who saves everything or spends everything. The winner is the one who starts investing something, anything, as early as possible and maintains that habit with boring consistency for decades. Even $200 per month invested for 10 years would have created $65,000 of wealth for Maggie. Even that would have completely changed her experience during the pandemic and her outlook on the future. The conversation revealed an important truth that financial advice often misses. This is not about extreme frugality or self-denial. It is about conscious choice and consistency. Maggie did not fail because she enjoyed experiences. She struggled because she enjoyed everything all the time and invested nothing. Lisa succeeded not because she denied herself everything, but because she built a system that automated investing before spending, making wealth accumulation inevitable rather than hopeful. 10 years after their divergent financial journeys began, Lisa and Maggie had learned complementary lessons that together form a complete picture of how to approach money wisely. Lisa learned that wealth building does not require perfection or extreme sacrifice. It requires a system that prioritizes investing first, consistently, without exception, and then enjoying whatever remains guilt-free. Maggie learned that living in the present without any thought for the future is not freedom. It is vulnerability disguised as freedom, and that vulnerability becomes terrifyingly apparent during crises. The mathematical reality of their story is undeniable, but the emotional reality is more nuanced. Lisa's $156,000 portfolio provides security, options, and freedom that Maggie cannot access. But Maggie's decade of experiences provided joy, memories, and personal growth that Lisa missed while being overly focused on the future. The ideal path, both women now recognize, lies somewhere between their two extremes. If this story were to be rewritten with the wisdom both women now possess, here is what it would look like. Start investing at least 20% of discretionary income immediately. Automate it so it happens without conscious decision, and never touch those investments except in genuine emergencies. Use the remaining 80% for lifestyle experiences and present enjoyment without guilt, knowing that your future is being handled automatically. Increase investment amounts whenever income increases, but never decrease them except in true hardship. Maintain this boring, unsexy, unglamorous habit for decades while everyone around you is doing more exciting things with their money. The result of this approach is not getting rich quick. It is building substantial wealth slowly while still enjoying life along the way. It is reaching your 40s with a 6-figure investment portfolio and happy memories instead of having to choose one or the other. It is never experiencing the terror of job loss with zero financial cushion because you always have at least a year of expenses covered. It is having the freedom to take career risks, start businesses, or simply walk away from toxic jobs because your assets provide options your peers cannot access. Lisa and Maggie's story is ultimately not about which one was right. It is about the fact that $500 per month invested consistently for 10 years creates life-changing wealth, and $500 per month spent consistently for 10 years creates nothing permanent despite providing temporary happiness. Both statements are simultaneously true. The question is not which approach is morally superior, but which outcome you want to have when you are 40, 50, and 60 years old. This is Harper mumbling, and if this story helped you see that building wealth is not about deprivation, but about priority and automation, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anyone who needs to understand that small, consistent decisions compound into massive consequences over time. Leave a comment about whether you relate more to Lisa or Maggie, and what amount you are committing to invest consistently starting today. Turn on notifications for future videos about the real-world mathematics of financial decisions. Thank you for watching, and remember, the question is not how much you earn, it is what percentage of what you earn you invest before spending the rest, and whether you maintain that habit long enough for compound growth to work its magic.